Well, I'll then go on to Ionis, Poseidon Med 1 and 2.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ioannis Barkas. I'm the project manager of Poseidon Med program, and together we are going to review what has been done on this program, and we will focus on the environmental roots of the program. So, a smaller description of the program. The Poseidon Med is a cross-European border project aiming to design an LNG transportation, distribution and supply system, network system, and infrastructure as well for the adoption of LNG as marine fuel in the Eastern Mediterranean and Adriatic region, as well as to define the framework for a well-functioning and sustainable relative market. The policy drivers behind the program, of course, we're talking about IMO, SECA, and TEN-T guidelines with respect to emission reduction. The framework of the project falls under the TEN-T program, and this program has been co-financed under the multi-annual work program of 2013. The duration of the program was 2 years. We started in late December 2013, and we finished on December 2015. The total project cost was more than 5 million euros, 50% of which was co-financed by the EU and TEN-T Motorways of the Sea program. 5 member states were involved: Cyprus, Greece, Italy, Slovenia, and Croatia, and in total 18 partners, including classification companies, port authorities, engineering and consulting companies, shipping companies, ship owners association, gas suppliers, and technical organizations were members of the consortium. The Poseidon Med goal is to serve and satisfy the EU and TEN-T objectives with respect to emission reduction, to increase efficiency and competitiveness of EU shipping in total, to ensure and strengthen accessibility to all areas of the comprehensive network, to diversify EU energy supply sources, to shape the path for creating new employment opportunities in the EU, and to assert the mobility of goods and people in a safe and socially responsible way. The environmental challenges behind the POSMED were set up by the Motorways of the Sea, and these included to advance the existing and establishing new maritime links, to better integrate the maritime links in the European chain, to fostering the development of new technologies and systems, of course to contribute to the climate change solutions, and to improve port infrastructures, capacities and facilities, including the provision of cleaner fuels for ships. The environmental challenges, the framework, of course, was based on the TEN-T regulation, Article 23, priorities for maritime infrastructure development, some bullet points on this, to promote motorways of the sea, including short sea shipping, to interconnect the maritime ports with inland waterways, to introduce new technologies and innovation for the promotion of alternative fuels and energy-efficient maritime transport, including LNG, and to modernize and expand the capacity of the infrastructure that is necessary for the transport operations within the port area in question. The environmental regulations of the program were based in the pylons of what has been discussed for the environmental in the past 20 years, starting with Annex 6 of MARPOL, Conversion Sets Regulation for the Prevention of Air Pollution from Ships, the Kyoto Protocol, of course, the Directive 32 of 1999, as this has been amended by Directive 33 of 2005, the later designated the Baltic Sea, the North Sea and the English Channel as SECA areas, and limited the maximum sulfur content of the fuels less to 1.5, maximum to 1.5% in time segments. And finally, the Directive 33 of 2012 that mandates the use of marine fuel with maximum 0.1% of sulfur in European ports and while at berth, or equivalent method to achieve the required emission, namely through the use of alternative fuels. A very short focusing on MARPOL Annex 6, which is important for air emissions air pollution from ships. Over there you can see some graphs and how we're going to achieve limiting the SOx and NOx emissions in time frame. Then comes the well-known global map of ECA areas. With dark blue you can see the established ones, with light blue the new ones, the upcoming ones. And sorry. The breaking news on this map is that has been discussed earlier this morning. China is discussing about establishing an ECA area in its water, and Australia is also discussing establishing an ECA area, an ECA zone in its territory as well. The environmental standards of the program were based, of course, on what is ahead of us, mainly by the 1st of January 2020, where we need to go to 0.5% of emissions. And however, this later date could be changed to the 1st of January 2025. And this is a subject to assessment by the IMO on the availability of marine fuel that can comply with this minimum content of sulfur. The limits for sulfur content in marine fuels used by passenger ships, including RoPax in member states, territorial seas outside ECAs, the limits will be 1.5% until 31st of December 2019 and 0.1% from January 2020 and on. And of course, we have the removal of derogation of Greek ships listed in the directive annex to the 0.1% limit of sulfur content in marine fuels for ships that are berthing the EU ports. The LNG advantages as marine fuel that the program has evaluated, and we concluded that these are solid. The use of LNG as ship's fuel will reduce SOx emissions by 90 to 95%. We also have lower carbon emissions due to lower carbon content of LNG compared to typical oil fuels. And this can present a 20 to 25% lower emissions of CO2. LNG currently is expected to be less costly than marine gas, LNG will be less costly than marine gas oil in the years to come. We do have low LNG prices at the moment in Europe and USA, and we have evaluated a model that the LNG price will be very competitive to the gas, to the marine diesel oil in the years to come. Although the oil is rather cheap now, this is not going to be the case in the next 10 to 15 years. Over there you may see a graph of what has been just described regarding the emissions. And the environmental and societal benefits by using LNG as marine fuel can be summarized that again we have a reduction of SOx and CO2 emissions, we have a better air quality. Perhaps some of you that are familiar with the using of LNG in ships, you may see the smoke coming from the stack of the ship is very, very clean and in comparison with the oil. The LNG is not toxic, it's not corrosive, and drastically reduces carcinogenic pollutants. The minimization of the external costs to the society, that is minimizing the external cost of accidents, noise and air pollution, biodiversity loss and increased land use is also a great benefit of using LNG as marine fuel. The sustainable transport system by 2015 that we have evaluated within the program comes to the following results. We expect a reduction of green gas emissions by 80% by 2050 compared to the respective levels of 1990. We can expect a drastic decrease in oil dependency ratio of transport-related activities by 2050. We can eliminating the congestion increase rate. Of course, we have the need to use better fuels for vessels by 2020. And the maritime and inland terminals will also need to start providing LNG by 2025. Of course, last but by no means least, we are talking about LNG mainland stations that will need also to be developed and supply LNG in the frame of 20 to 25. Summarizing the environmental and societal benefits, the use of LNG will help stakeholders living in the EU to reach environmental targets that have been set up by international and European regulations regarding, of course, the sulfur and particulate matter. Natural gas is, at the moment, the cleanest fossil fuel, and we can deduct NOx emissions by 40 to 45%, and the particulate emissions are reduced by approximately 80%. Also, depending on the type of the engine, heavy-duty vehicles running on LNG can produce up to 20 to 25% fewer greenhouse gas emissions. Of course, last but by no means least, is a significant reduction in noise level coming from the engine operation. So, a few words about what Poseidon Med has came up to as a conclusion. As a program, we concluded that the LNG is a feasible alternative marine fuel in the region of the Mediterranean and Adriatic. We have established the regulatory framework that must be further exploited and designed in order to create a solid regulatory environment for applying LNG as marine fuel. We have investigated the technical needs on the vessels themselves and also on the ports of the region under question. In the second phase of the Poseidon Med, we have Poseidon Med 2, which is typically a totally dependent program, however, is being based on the results of our program, of Poseidon Med. Poseidon Med 2 is now shaping the detailed work that is needed for creating the final results of LNG infrastructure, both on vessels and on ports. And the final results of the Poseidon Med 2, which will come in 4 years from now, in 2020, will be ready for implementation. This is the actual target, to create results that they will be implemented as soon as practical. Among the Poseidon Med 2, there are some very innovative concepts that they will be studied in detail. And allow me to refer to one of them, and this is coming from the Port of Venice. The Port of Venice has included a very innovative project that is a semi-submersible barge that transports LNG tanks within the lagoon area of Venice, thus eliminating the need for larger vessels to sail within this very sensitive area of Venice. The innovation behind this idea is that this barge will be able to transfer LNG tanks whenever it is needed to the spot point of the need, and it will be a very environmental friendly vessel, specially designed for operating within the lagoon area of Venice. We expect with great anticipation the results of this program and of Poseidon Med 2 in total. And last but not least, I must tell you that the Poseidon Med is a program co-founded again by the EU Commission. The total budget is more than 50 million euros, 50% of which is co-founded, and the program will end in December 2020. So we have 4 years ahead of us, 4.5 years ahead of us, in order to design in detail the small-scale LNG in the Eastern Mediterranean and Adriatic. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions to Ioannis about, yeah?
Yes, my name is Per Stefensson. I'm from Stena. I'll speak to you a little later about the methanol project. I just had a question. You said there that the target is to reduce CO2 by 2050 with 80%. And then you showed that the LNG is, we could maybe reduce it with 25%. So my question is, what will come next after the LNG? And how long will we have the LNG before we have to go for new targets?
Okay, thank you very much. In order to clarify the picture for you, the LNG by default produces 20 to 25% of CO2 less than oil. The figure that I mentioned in 2050 is a sum-up figure compared to what has been emitted in 1990 in a global, let's say, picture. So this is, let's say, an accumulated emission report. Regarding the availability of LNG, the picture is somehow positive, meaning that the global reservoir of LNG is far, far better than oil at the moment. And we also expect new players to come on scene, like Cyprus and Israel. And do not forget the key role that Australia and the US and Canada will play in the next years as LNG suppliers. The outcome that we had as a program discussing all these issues with various LNG suppliers or players, let's say, was that the Middle East region will step down in the next years and new players like I said, Australia and the US will come ahead. We expect that the global reservoir of LNG will be adequate to establish the figures for 2050 that I mentioned. Of course, this is a fossil fuel. This means that eventually it will come to an end. And okay, we will have many discussions ahead of us to see what's next as a fuel.
Well, it wasn't really the availability I was asking for. I was asking for how are you going to reach the 80% goal if you are putting all your eggs into the LNG?
No, the 80% of the lower emissions is being calculated on how many ships will operate by 2050.
No, it's the goal. It is the transport goal that we should reduce CO2 emissions with 80% until 2050. Am I right?
Well, that was about. I think Per is making reference to the white paper on the transport policy. One of the reasons why we were developing the Trans-European networks was to try generally, there is no standard, it was a general objective, it was to reduce the contribution of transport by 80% in 2050, 2050. Okay, so you do not need to answer to that. You can say, give me money and I'll think about it. This was an objective of the Commission, so as you're not an officer of the Commission, as far as I know, okay, so probably you don't know that.
Over there, these.
I'll give you. I'll take that answer.
Being responsible on what is happening on the ship, I would like to know from the gentleman that just spoke, what is the risk of using LNG? Did you have a look at that? And the second question is, in building a ship and you equip it with LNG, is that the same price as when you put the normal engines in, or is it more expensive?
Okay, in the first part of your question, LNG is safe to be used, provided that we are following the safety guidelines that the LNG supplier or the system supplier is being instructed to us. There is no major incident regarding an LNG fueled vessel at the moment. Of course, we do not have a lot of ships operating on LNG, but even so, with this small number of ships, we do not have a major impact. There was an accident, an LNG accident in Gibraltar, I think 2 years ago, which was very well accommodated, and even if a cruise ship was berthed next to the ship with the accident, nothing has happened, and there was even a need to evacuate the cruise ship, which was, let's say, in 50 meters away. As a conclusion, the LNG, as any other fuel, presents hazards, that is for sure. Our job is to create the guidelines and to train the people to operate the LNG on a safe manner. Regarding the cost of the vessel, this is for sure a straightforward answer. An LNG-fueled vessel is more expensive to be built and rather than a normal diesel oil engine ship. Our calculations stated that we are talking about a 25 to 30% more cost on a new build if we want to have it and to use an LNG as marine fuel. If we're talking about retrofits, then this is a tailor-made answer. I cannot give you a straightforward answer. And this has to do with the age of the ship, with the initial cost of the vessel, and how the retrofit will be designed and revolving around.
Yeah, go on.
The reason asking you the first question is the fact that I was captain on a big container ship, and we almost bumped into a LNG ship in the port of Barcelona. It was about 2 or 3 meters distance before we bumped, and we were fortunate enough to avoid the collision. But that is, in fact, my question. Did that ever happen before? And what are the consequences?
Sorry, because I mean, this is not Poseidon Med. What we can tell you is we take that into account on the third forum, that's about safety. Okay. Concerning the operational measures, you will listen to a number of operators operating already LNG vessels, and that is, it's not vessels carrying LNG, it's an LNG propelled vessel, like Viking Grace. It's operating from Stockholm to Helsinki. I mean, 2 countries that are known not to make any compliance to regulations in terms of environment. So it is operating, okay? And please wait for the people that are already operating the vessels. They can tell you the experience, because I was in the vessel. So they are operating the vessel, okay? So, shall we move to the next one?
There's a question there.
Not a question, that's a remark. We all agree that LNG fuel vessels are more expensive to construct, but by using standardization process, you can minimize the difference, the capital difference, and you can have an LNG fueled vessels at the price of a conventional. But we need to have here a trade-off. I mean, okay, somebody has to pay this extra cost. Maybe EU will provide some good incentives, but we need to target this money to get back invested in Europe. I mean, it's not clever to issue regulations and then export the money to China or to Far East. So we need to have a mechanism to reindustrialize Europe through this attempt. So we might come to a win-win situation where we will cope with the new regulations, and at the same time we make a good thing for the society, the environment, and also for the industry.
Yeah, go on.
Yes. Further to those Mr. Zacharyodakis said, I would like to mention that during this period in IMO areas, Maritime Safety Committee, the specific issues is under consideration. And I think that they are looking for creating criteria and requirements as concern the safety of transportation of the cargo to the vessels. Therefore, we think that very soon, from the side of IMO, must be clear and very sufficient criteria and requirements. And I think that these specific guidelines and requirements must be on the positive way in order to avoid any incident on these cases. Thank you.